Now, another area that is optional for you to get ready and go live for your campaign is setting up what is called a custom domain. Now, every single website has a domain. In fact, every single one of your campaigns in Razely comes with a temporary domain that you can use. That's why if you go into your campaign and click View Your Site, it'll take you to the temporary domain. Where you can find that domain is if you go to Settings, scroll on down, Domains. And right here, you can see your temporary domain. You can actually change your domain by updating the subdomain that is there for a different name. But at the moment, our domain for this site is demo-appeal-basic.razeleysite.com. Now, when you have a campaign, ideally it's probably not great for you to publicly advertise anything that really says razeleysite.com. What you really want it to do is point to your domain, charity.com or whatever it is. Now, how would you do this? Well, it's relatively simple. In Razely, if you want to set up a new domain, you simply, one, need to own that domain. Second, add the domain into Razely. And third, update your domain settings. So if I go over to a popular domain provider called GoDaddy, and there's many of these out there that will sell domains, you'll be able to purchase a domain here. Now, the one in case we're looking at the moment is razeleyschool.com. That is a domain that I have purchased, and we're going to utilize that for the example here. Because I've purchased this domain, I own it, and now I can point my website to this address. So how would I do that? Well, let's just copy razeleyschool.com, and we're going to put that in our domain here. We don't need to put in the HTTPS or anything like that. Just razeleyschool.com will be fine. If I hit add, what Razely will now do is spit me up what is called the DNS settings. Now, these are all relatively simple. The problem is they look like IT gobbledygook. So we just need to get past that and move on forward. But what we need to do here is we need to put what is called these records into our domain settings. And to do that, we need to use DNS. So I'm going to go back into my domain and I'm going to go to the DNS settings. Now, whatever your domain provider is, it'll have some way of getting to your DNS settings. Once you open these up, you'll have the option to create a new record. So we can simply select add new record and the little box here will appear. Now, one of the problems is every domain provider looks a little bit different, but we'll go through this and set this up so hopefully it's not too hard for you as you do it on your end. Now, the first one I want to do is add an A record. I'm going to leave the name blank or put an alpha. And then I want to add in the value that is here. So let's go do that. On the type, I'm going to choose an A record. In the name, GoDaddy says I can use alpha. So I'll just do that. And then in the value, I can just paste that in. Don't worry too much about the TTL at the moment. Now we have a few records, an A quadruple A, and a CNAME record. So we want to add another one in here. So let's do this. Add more records. And we're going to choose in the the quadruple A record. Again, the name, we can just leave it alpha, which just defaults it to blank, by the way. So some of your domain providers, you'll just leave it empty. And then in value, you paste in the value. We're going to add another record. And this record is a CNAME record. We're going to add the value www, and it's going to point to this value here. We simply go down here. Let's scroll down. CNAME, www, paste in the value, and I'm going to hit save all my records. Now it's updated the DNS records. I can see my A record here, I can see my CNAME record here, and I can see my quadruple A record here. That really is all I need to be doing. What I can do in Razely is I can simply select check now, And what it will look for is that it will see whether or not this has been added into your domain records. Now, just as a note, this can take time. It can take 10 minutes. It can take 1 hour. It could take 24 hours. So if it's not working straight away, that is normal and okay. Sometimes if you give it just another hit, it will work then. But as you can see now, it's not. And that's okay. Give it time and those records will update. Now, just to note, when you are using a domain, you can only have one A record and one quadruple A record on your domain at a time. You can't have more than that because these are what it is to point to the actual web address, what your domain is pointing to the website. What is interesting though is that you can have multiple CNAME records. And where this can be really helpful is I'll take you through it. Let's hit finish later. And as you can see here, we have our new domain records here. What I could do though is I could add a CNAME record. And what that does is it's useful for a subdomain. A subdomain is just a prefix in front, such as appeal.raislyschool.com. Now, as you use your campaigns, you may want to add a prefix here. In my case, it's an appeal campaign. So I want to use the subdomain appeal. It might be fundraise. It could be anything you want. Tax, if it's a tax time appeal, or anything that you want that you could put in here as a subdomain. It's just a prefix. It's actually the same as this here. Did you notice that the www here is actually just a subdomain? You don't actually need it. You could just put in raislyschool.com and your site will load. But the www is also a prefix or a subdomain. We're just adding another one called appeal. So if I add on this into my Raisly, it'll then give me the CNAME record that I need to add to my domain. Type CNAME, name, appeal, and hosting value is hosting.raislysite.com. If I now go into my DNS settings, go add new record, choose CNAME, type in appeal, and add in hosting.raislysite.com and hit save, I'm done. What I can now do, if I want to go to appeal.raislyschool.com, it'll also work as well. Now you can add numerous amounts of subdomains in here if you did want, but in most cases, the way people actually use subdomains is you have a subdomain for each of your campaigns, such as donate.raislyschool.com, annual event.raislyschool.com, give.raislyschool.com, fundraise.raislyschool.com, and so on and so on. And it's a great way to utilize domains across different ones of your campaigns. So there's a little introduction into how to set up custom domains. If you do get stuck, reach out to our team, but why don't you give it a crack, as it's a great way to publicize your website.